In our headlines on this Thursday afternoon, June 8th, here in South Korea. The Yoon administration shares a new security strategy, the first in 5 years for South Korea, that places priority on national stability and broader regional prosperity through constructive collaboration. Meanwhile, the recent devastation of a major dam in Ukraine continues to make international headlines, as Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelenskyy accuses Russia of not only the dam's destruction, but also of shooting at rescue workers. And tens of millions of people in the US are under air quality alerts as suffocating smoke from raging Canadian wildfires shift south, turning American skies orange and filling the air there with harmful pollution. We start on the local front. The Yoon administration has laid out a fresh framework of guidelines detailing its diplomatic and defense agenda with priority on national security and broader regional prosperity. Our presidential office correspondent Oh Soo-young reports.
The Yoon Suk-yeol administration released its national security strategy on Wednesday, saying it pursues practical and cooperative diplomacy to enhance South Korea's national interest and standing in the world.
Our three main national security goals are, first, to protect national sovereignty and territory and to promote public safety. Second, while establishing peace on the Korean peninsula, prepare for unification in the future. Third, lay the basis for prosperity in East Asia and expand Seoul's global role.
First, Seoul plans to maintain its audacious initiative policy that offers economic incentives to Pyongyang upon concrete actions towards denuclearization, leaving the door open to engagement, whilst bolstering its three-axis deterrence strategy against North Korea's missile and nuclear threat. The strategy highlights the South's alliance with the United States, bolstered by the recent Washington declaration that established the Joint Nuclear Consultative Group. A senior Yoon official said the group would be formed within the year, with a potential first meeting during the summer, and that the Allies and Tokyo are working to complete a trilateral missile warning system. With the US and Japan highlighted as the country's essential partners in both national and economic security based on shared liberal democratic values, the strategy adopts confident diplomacy towards Beijing regarding sensitive security issues while aiming for a healthier and more mature relationship based on mutual respect and reciprocity. On Russia, Seoul will continue efforts to end the war in Ukraine along with sanctions on the Kremlin. Still, it seeks stable relations with Moscow. Citing concern about the geopolitical risks between the major powers, as well as trade uncertainties, Seoul looks to overcome its greatest security and economic challenges through a global comprehensive approach of collaborating more with other middle powers. Building on the Indo-Pacific strategy released in December, the National Security Strategy lays out more detailed steps to cooperate with the Association of Southeast Asian Nations and the European Union to maintain stability in supply chains and regional security, and tackle emerging challenges such as climate change and cyber attacks based on the rule of law and freedom. To establish itself as a global pivotal state, South Korea will strive to actively expand its roles in global governance and its development assistance in proportion to its international standing. Oh Soo-young, Arirang News.
On the local economic front, government authorities and corporate heavyweights are seeking a fresh export strategy for the country's semiconductors. At the 17th Emergency Economic Meeting presided over by President Yoon Suk-yeol earlier on this Thursday, chips took center stage as dozens of industry insiders shared thoughts on maintaining Korea's lead in the memory chip market and expanding its share in the non-memory chip market. Discussions also included potential government support for chip makers in investment and in the protection of intellectual property. Semiconductors account for a fifth of Korea's exports and 55% of its manufacturing investment. Meanwhile, prospects over the government's planned labour reforms have been rendered uncertain. This follows a recent decision by a major umbrella labour union to opt out from a president-led economic council. Our business correspondent Arirang tells us why and more.
One of South Korea's two major labor umbrella groups, the Federation of Korean Trade Unions, has decided to suspend its participation in the trilateral consultative body between labor management and the government. The decision was made for the first time in more than 7 years, meaning that the Economic, Social, and Labor Council will lack power as a communication channel between the labor union and the government. Around 50 union members sat down in a meeting on Wednesday, which took around an hour. Afterward, the chairman of the FKTU, Kim Dong-myung, said that the union's decision is powerful and basically means that the FKTU has pulled out from the Economic, Social, and Labor Council. He also said that it's more important for the union members to sort the issue out together. FKTU will not be leaving the council at this point, but the union said it can decide to completely withdraw from the council at any time. A result of Wednesday's discussion will be announced Thursday morning in a press conference at the Yongsan presidential office. This comes as President Yoon Suk-yeol a few weeks ago ordered a police crackdown on labor sit-ins. Late last month, an executive of the Federation of Korean Metal Workers Trade Unions was injured by police during a sit-in protest on top of a 7-meter-high steel structure, which the FKTU called an excessive use of force. The council was scheduled to hold the first governmental meeting with representatives of labor and management last Thursday, but was cancelled due to the FKTU's absence. The Yoon administration and the umbrella labor union have been at odds following the government's labor reform policies, such as sluggish adjustments to the working hours and wage system, and the administration's plans to increase accounting transparency of labor unions. Lee Dae-hyun, Arirang News.
Come July, people here will be able to transfer up to $100,000 a year overseas without providing evidentiary papers. At present, there is a cap of $50,000 for such transactions. The ease in red tape comes amid government efforts to encourage investments as part of its broader plan to bolster the economy. Accordingly, companies will only be required to report foreign currency loans amounting to $50 million and above from the current $30 million. In Ukraine, President Volodymyr Zelenskyy has made some alarming accusations as the world continues to grapple with the potential catastrophic consequences of a critical dam destruction in the country amid Russia's ongoing invasion. Our Ising-jae has the latest.
In an exclusive interview with Germany's Bild newspaper on Wednesday, Ukrainian President Vladimir Zelenskyy says Russian forces are shooting at Ukrainian rescuers, trying to help those impacted by the flood that followed the recent collapse of the Novokakhovka Dam. Zelenskyy blamed Russia for the dam collapse, saying that it was a move to slow down Ukrainian forces from taking back their territories. He also slammed international humanitarian organizations, which he says have done nothing to assist in the rescue operation, despite pleas for help. Meanwhile, in his first comments since the destruction of the Russian-controlled dam, Russian President Vladimir Putin blamed Ukraine, calling those responsible barbaric. The comments came as he held phone talks with Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan on Wednesday, where he noted that the destruction of the dam led to a large-scale environmental and humanitarian catastrophe. After holding talks with both Putin and Zelenskyy, the Turkish presidential office spoke of the possibility of establishing a commission made up of experts from the warring parties, the UN, and other countries, including Turkey, to investigate what happened to the dam. Meanwhile, NATO Secretary General Jens Stoltenberg said Wednesday that he will chair an emergency meeting on Thursday on what he called the outrageous destruction of the dam. Taking to Twitter, the NATO chief said it had displaced thousands of people and caused an ecological catastrophe in Ukraine. The meeting comes at the request of Ukrainian Foreign Minister Dmytro Kuleba, who will be taking part via video link. The destruction of the dam has become a hot topic all around the world, as the UN's World Food Program has also come out warning of negative consequences for hunger worldwide following the incident. The head of the WFP's Berlin office, Martin Frick, said Wednesday that the massive flooding is destroying newly planted grain, and with it hope for 345 million hungry people around the world for whom grain from Ukraine is a lifesaver. According to preliminary estimates, the dam collapse could eventually lead to some 10,000 hectares of agricultural land on the northern bank of the Dnipro being flooded. Ising-jae, Arirang News.
Meanwhile, in North America, Canada is frantically fighting raging wildfires that are affecting the air in the U.S. as well. In fact, skies in New York City turned orange amid the heavy blanket of smoke from Canada, rendering the air quality in the city the worst in the world on Wednesday. Our Yoon reports.
Canada has been experiencing an unusually early and intense start to its wildfire season, which is shaping up to be the nation's worst ever, and so far displaced more than 120,000 people from their homes. Many of the fires have been burning for several days and are said to have been started by lightning strikes. There are currently some 400 ongoing fires in Canada, of which 240 have been determined to be out of control as of Wednesday. Smoke from the wildfires burning across Canada has been crossing into the U.S. since last month, but that has intensified with the latest fires in Quebec triggering air quality alerts to be issued in 15 states, from Vermont to South Carolina. According to a U.S. Environmental Protection Agency metric for air pollution, the air quality index exceeded a staggering 400 at times in parts of New York City and Pennsylvania. A level of 50 or under is considered good, and anything over 300 is considered hazardous, when even healthy people are advised to limit outdoor physical activity.
As a result, we are encouraging New Yorkers to stay home, indoors, tonight and tomorrow, whenever possible, especially our vulnerable New Yorkers. All New Yorkers should limit outdoor activity to the greatest extent possible.
New York City closed beaches, parks, and zoos. Schools have shifted recess indoors, and outdoor performances have been canceled, as well as Major League Baseball games. The Federal Aviation Administration paused and slowed flights due to the smoke limiting visibility. As people scramble once again for face masks, New York will be making 1,095,000 masks available at state facilities starting Thursday.
We have to take each situation clearly, but this is extremely dangerous air outside. This is an environment where we are recommending every single New Yorker, if they don't have to, stay indoors. That's a very strong recommendation.
Last year, the United Nations warned that a warming climate and land use changes would lead to more wildfires globally. Experts say wildfire seasons are becoming longer, and because of the hot and dry conditions caused by climate change, the blazes are spreading faster and burning larger areas. More than 950 firefighters and personnel have arrived from the U.S., Australia, New Zealand, and South Africa, and more are due to arrive in Canada soon. Yoon, Arirang News.
Also in the U.S., with imports rebounding and exports retreating, the country's trade balance plunged deeper into the red in April, just 1 month after noting a sharp shrink in deficit in March. Our Song Yujin has the latest trade numbers.
The U.S. trade deficit in April reached its highest level in 6 months and widened by the biggest margin since April 2015, jumping 23.0% to $74.6 billion. This comes as imports of goods rebounded and exports, especially for energy-related products, declined. According to the U.S. Department of Commerce, overall imports increased 1.5% to nearly $324 billion. The goods imports rose 2% to some $263 billion, boosted by motor vehicles, parts, and engines. There were also increases in the import of industrial supplies and materials. Overall exports fell 3.6%, the largest drop in 3 years, to $249 billion. Exports of goods plunged 5.3%, the most in 3 years, to some $167 billion, the lowest level since February 2022. As for U.S. trade with China, the goods trade deficit slightly widened from the month before. And according to a report by the Wall Street Journal, China's share of U.S. goods imports fell to the lowest level since 2006 to 15.4% in the year leading up to April, amid rising geopolitical tensions between the two countries. Meanwhile, U.S. trade with other countries in Europe and Asia, as well as Mexico, increased. And trade with 25 Asian countries, including India, Japan, and Vietnam, in the previous 12 months accounted for nearly 25% of overall goods imported. 송유진, Arirang News.
And China's exports lost ground for the first time in 3 months in May. According to China's Customs Bureau on Wednesday, the nation's exports fell 7.5% on year last month to around $283 billion, posting its biggest plunge since January. Exports to the US shrank over 15%, as did exports to the European Union, that dropped 4.9% on year, highlighting the recent sluggish global demand for Chinese goods. In other news, Coinbase chief executive Brian Armstrong has sought to reaffirm the safety of funds of users despite a recent lawsuit launched by the U.S. Securities and Exchange Commission. The commission claims Coinbase had failed to register 13 crypto assets as securities subject to regulations while operating as an unregistered crypto broker. Coinbase currently trades 200 crypto assets. Speaking at an industry conference on Wednesday, Armstrong alleged that Coinbase met with the Commission on 30 different occasions to seek clarity over registration rules, but had received, quote, icy reception. Earlier this week, curtains went up on a new government agency here, assigned with the task of offering support to Koreans residing overseas. That being said, my colleague Lee Si-hoo was out and about to gauge the public response to this fresh initiative.
To support the more than 7.5 million South Koreans living abroad, the Overseas Koreans Agency opened its doors on Monday.
앞으로 재외동포청은 재외동포들을 보호하고 지원하는 것은 물론 재외동포와 모국 간 교류, 협력을 촉진하는 연결고리와 역할을 수행할 것입니다.
The 151-person agency, with its headquarters in Incheon and a branch office in Gwanghwamun in central Seoul, oversees policies regarding South Koreans living overseas. The office in Gwanghwamun provides administrative support in many areas of overseas Koreans' lives. This support center in Gwanghwamun provides a one-stop service for many issues that affect overseas Koreans, such as nationality, immigration, and military service. Whereas before, overseas Koreans had to visit different agencies for different services, they can now receive a comprehensive service at the office conveniently located close to many embassies.
My daughter is an American citizen, so she might apply to recover her Korean citizenship again. And being close to the US Embassy and the Foreign Ministry makes it much more convenient.
My wife is Korean, my kids as well, they were born here. So, this is helpful for us because it's easier to get things done.
The launch of the agency was one of President Yoon Suk-yeol's election pledges and later a national task. Its establishment was made possible through the revision of the Government Organization Act that specified the launch of the agency under the umbrella of the Foreign Ministry. The revision passed the National Assembly and the Cabinet in late February.
I declare the passing of the partial revision of the Government Organization Act with 266 approvals and 6 abstentions from the 272 present.
Overseas Koreans themselves welcome the change.
Now that it's beginning, I hope that practical, not-for-show policies and administration will take place with the well-being of more than 7.5 million overseas Koreans in mind.
At the same time, they further underlined the need for better channels of communication between the home country and the Korean communities overseas.
I've been thinking it'd be nice for South Korea to refer to the voices, thoughts, and wisdom of overseas Koreans.
Meanwhile, the head of the agency, Lee Ki-cheol, vowed to listen to their many voices and offer practical help. Lee Si-hoo, Arirang News.
Let's take a look at what's going on in the world now. In Hawaii, one of the world's most active volcanoes has erupted for the second time in 3 months. According to the Hawaiian Volcano Observatory, Kilauea volcano began erupting on Wednesday morning local time. Authorities have raised the alert level for Kilauea to red for warning. The eruption is within the boundaries of the Hawaii Volcanoes National Park, and there are no signs that populated areas are under threat. But officials are expecting an increased number of visitors looking to witness the eruption firsthand. The volcano last erupted for 61 days, starting in January and ending in March. Turning over to Italy, where Pope Francis has undergone successful abdominal surgery. Doctors at Gemelli Hospital in Rome on Wednesday spent 3 hours repairing a hernia and found no other complications. It was his second abdominal operation in 2 years. He will remain hospitalized for the next few days and is expected to recover within a week. The Pope will then be able to resume travel and other activities. The 86-year-old pontiff has faced a number of health issues recently, including a fever in late May and bronchitis in March. He also delayed scheduled trips to the Democratic Republic of Congo and South Sudan last year due to knee pain. And finally, Argentinian football star Lionel Messi has confirmed that he is moving to Major League Soccer club Inter Miami. The 7-time World Player of the Year confirmed his intention to move in an interview with Spanish sports outlets, although it has not yet been finalized. It comes amid a speculation of a possible return to former club Barcelona and the possibility of accepting a lucrative offer from Saudi Arabia. Co-owned by former English football star David Beckham, Inter Miami is currently bottom of its league and fired its head coach Phil Neville last week. Matthew Ashley, Arirang News.
Good afternoon. Thursday began with mostly cloudy skies before becoming rainy in central regions, Jeollado and parts of Gyeongsangdo provinces, but much sunnier skies in the rest of the southern parts of the country. Now, more about the rain. Central regions could see up to 50 millimeters of rain, pounding down overnight at 20 to 30 millimeters an hour. And while it rains, thunderstorms and strong winds could lash the area. Despite the rain, temperatures should go up as high as yesterday. East Coast regions are seeing highs jumping to nearly 30 degrees Celsius again. Seoul is as comfortable as yesterday under that murky skies. Keep an umbrella handy. Meanwhile, southern parts of the country will see sunnier skies as the afternoon goes on with stronger UV rays, and air quality will be normal to good nationwide all day today. Skies will clear from tomorrow morning with more passing rain in the forecast in central regions this weekend. Now that's Korea for you, and here's a look at the international weather conditions. Well, those are the headlines at this hour, but we have our panel session coming up right after this break, so do stay with us. Thank you for now.